Welcome in to Hannycast for Monday, May the 11th. I'm Charles Hanagriff, along with former Tiger coach Dan Canevari, and a special guest today. We're so happy that the skipper, Skip Bertman, can join us today. Skip, good to see you, boss.
Charlie, very nice to see you again. Very nice. And, of course, Cano has shown me around here in Cano land. He's in on everything in this part of the state. He's something.
He's got the upscale accommodations.
Yes.
We're real pleased with that studio there on the North Shore. Coach, I'm gonna ask you just a kind of a broad question because I'm curious. Dan and I have done the how and the what. We know that this season hasn't gone the way anybody thought it would go, and we've done the hows and the whats. They're not hitting well enough. They're not fielding well enough. They're not pitching well enough. I think everybody, and of course Jay Johnson, is why. And I'm just curious your thoughts as to why this season it started with so much promises, kind of going the way it has.
I'll tell you, Jay is a wonderful coach. But he surprised by the lack of performance, particularly the pitching staff. He had Evans, who's hurt a while, and other guys that could really throw, and they're not. He had the big guy at first base, York, and he was supposed to hit 20 homers and so on. And plays freshman at second base. Of course, Milam's one of the great shortstops in the game. I'm sorry, he can field with anybody. And at third base, he's got to play whoever. Other than center field, with Curiel. Curiel's going to play in the big leagues. He's a wonderful guy. He's going to be a high draft pick. And, of course, a freshman in right field and senior in left field. So I hope he recruits well, and he's a great coach. And so is Nate Yeske. The pitching coach, very, very good.
Was there any way to see this coming? Obviously, they expected a lot more of this. Guys that pitched a lot better last year.
Yes.
The same guys a year later, same coach, same guys didn't take that next step, or some of the hitters that they expected to step up didn't. Any way to see this kind of coming?
Well, that's good. Good for you, Charles. Basically, that's it. He had, I don't want to mention names, but he had kids that were supposed to play. They played well last year, and they're supposed to get better, and they just haven't played well. And that's 1 through 9 on defense and offense. They just haven't played the LSU way. And he's just a bit over 500. Got beat so bad at Georgia, which is a top 10 team. You wonder what happened. And Jake Brown happened to be injured. Evans, best pitcher, was injured. That's all it takes.
Well, you got Moore, got hurt. The number 2 guy, so you lose your number 1 guy is not at full strength. Number 2 guy goes down. But, Coach, using your language, one of the things we always talked about is this.
Yes.
Somebody's got to step up. And when you got no step-ups, and no one had a great year except for Jake Brown, and then he goes down with an injury. He had a Golden Spikes type of year going, and he goes down.
Yeah.
So when you lose your 1 and 2 pitchers, well, 1 for part of the year, 2 for most of the year, your best player's having a great year, he goes down. Now it's harder for Curiel to hit because you don't have Brown to protect him, and it goes on. And then nobody else stepped up. Like you said, York is supposed to come up and hit 20 homers, and hit 16 or 20, but he didn't have that year. It's not his fault. It just
no. So we're putting the first baseman at freshman at first base.
Right, the top freshman in the country at first base, and he's excellent, but he's not supposed to play right now.
He's not supposed to be there.
Right. Yeah. That's not the way it works. He's supposed to be DHing and spotting in a little bit while York's hitting 20 homers, and you got this guy coming off the bench. And and playing on Tuesday night to get some experience for next year. So Jay made the shift and played the young guys and played some other guys, and he's building the team. And that's all you can say. I think probably, nobody, in order for us to win a series, we had to have hero type games from somebody because, it just wasn't clicking as a whole.
Right. Actually, the coach is great. The pitching coach is great. I mean, everything's there, but the kids aren't having the years that we hoped they would have. It's not a coaching thing. It's a baseball thing. The game can be cruel at times. And I think right now we're having some tough times and playing just a little bit above 500. And of course, that's not LSU. That swept. Matter of fact, Georgia's sweep was the first one in history for Georgia.
Against LSU.
Yeah, against LSU. So
I want to say this, Charlie, go along with what Skip's saying. He said this a lot of times, and I don't know if people really understand. It's harder for Jay to win now than when we were coaching.
Yes.
Because everybody's got a good coach, everybody's got a facility, and now you throw in NIL, everybody's getting paid.
That's right.
Yeah, the top players are spread out. They aren't coming to the South. They could go to Oregon and get paid. They can go to Ohio State even, and they can get paid. And so it's very, very difficult to field a team, but everybody coaches well. And so it's tough to really dominate like we were lucky enough in the 90s, in the right era for your talents.
Yes. So, we had great players, but in the 90s, we were the only ones. Maybe some of the West Coast.
Mississippi State, a little bit.
Mississippi State with Polk.
And then you had Miami. And you had Long Beach State and Cal State Fullerton when Augie was there. A little bit of Texas when Augie was there.
Yeah. But today, like Dan said, everybody's got a good coach. I don't mean to be not being sarcastic and not being mean. The guys make $2 and $3 million to be baseball coaches. And I think you got to be a good one or you get fired. So the coaches are much better than when Dan and I coached at LSU. So you got coaches that already have fields, stadiums,
indoor facilities, training facilities. We had Phil Page in the dugout, the GA trainer. Now they got nutrition specialists, ADs in the dugout. It's just become such a big thing. It's so much different. What
the people realized when I played, we had a lot of people when I coached. We had a lot of people in the stands. I remember getting a call from the athletic director at Auburn, and he said, "How do you do that, Skip?" And I said, "We have a good facility. We recruit good players, and we watch them play. And that's all there is." Next thing you know, Auburn's got a nice stadium. And, of course, Mississippi State was always good, especially with Ron.
Right.
But now Mississippi with Mike Bianco is a rival and a good one. And now there's 16 teams.
Yeah, Texas and Texas A&M.
I
mean, you added them in. You added in Oklahoma, another good program. So it's just so much tougher.
Much tougher to win today, not yet alone dominate. It's much tougher today. We have a player here, that played in the years where we dominated, and we'll speak with him about it. But it's much tougher today.
I'm going to bring him in right now.
Bring him in. Going to the pen.
While he does that, let me tell you that we're brought to you by the Canevari USSSA baseball affiliate, hosting league play, all-star divisions, AA, AAA, Major League, state, and national events, with some events lined up going into the summer. Contact Lane Petrie at 771-9095, 771-9095 for the Canevari USSSA. We're also brought to you by China. located in the heart of downtown Hammond, China, an upscale Italian restaurant serving traditional dishes in contemporary fashion, inspired by an abundance of fresh local produce and the ways of old. China, creating a unique dining experience with local ingredients and delicious recipes to create an exceptional dining experience and providing a fresh and inclusive atmosphere can be enjoyed by everyone. China, in the heart of downtown Hammond. And I believe that is Jeremy Moore, if I
Yes,
am
it is.
seeing this correctly. Jeremy, it's good to see you. How you been?
All is good, Charlie. It's great to see you as well. And as I was sitting here listening to you guys chat, just thinking back to the days when I was on staff and you were, you were doing some radio, and we got to share some road trips and stories. And you being a sports guy, it was always fun to have those conversations. So it's good to catch up.
It was fun. My favorite road trip when you were in charge of the travel, we were going to Kentucky, Skip, and Jeremy, we flying commercial, of course, not like the private guys today. And Jeremy sends us through Atlanta with a 6-hour layover. He said there was nowhere we could go without a 6-hour layover. And he said, Charlie, I knew you wanted to watch the NCAA basketball tournament, so we can sit in the airport and watch basketball all day while we're waiting to go to Lexington. So I remember a bunch of those road trips, Jeremy, and you guys had a chance last weekend. To go back, and of course you remember the '96 national championship team and the last game, Warren Morris. We all know that. I know you guys had a wonderful weekend, and I think you spilled the party back over to your house afterwards for everybody. So must have been a special weekend for everybody involved.
Well, it was, and I actually had the pre-party on Friday night, Coach, and some of the locals and those that were in town, because the game, as you know, Friday night was rained out, and so we had some former players and wives, and Coach actually he got to catch up with catcher
we did.
Tim Lanier.
Yeah, Tim Lanier's his birthday.
Yeah, it was his birthday.
And what kid didn't we recognize?
Who did we recognize?
It's a catcher.
Conan Horton.
Conan Horton.
Yeah.
Didn't know who he was. Of course, he had beard.
Yeah.
Today, bald and large.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know him. And finally, Jeremy said, I didn't recognize him either. I felt a lot better. I don't think I've ever not recognized a former player, but that time was, well, that's the first.
Yeah. I think he got a lot of us. And, but yeah, he was, we had a great turnout, not only Friday night at the house, but we had a great turnout on Saturday. Got to see a lot of families, and some of the guys were, while Coach and Tim were visiting, I said, here's what you got to understand about these catchers. I think that's why he and Mike were so Bianco were so tight. I said, you got to think about a pitcher. He only gets Coach every fourth or fifth day. I said, Tim got him every single day,
every single inning,
every inning, every bullpen. So, a head coach, especially that calls pitches, and a catcher have a special relationship. So that was really neat to see. And Tim doesn't get back terribly often, but just with family and everything.
But you're right. To see Tim was wonderful on his birthday.
On his birthday, yeah.
It was wonderful. And of course, it's an alumni event. And the next day, I got to see lots of kids. And Jesus, I'm 80, gonna be 88 a couple of weeks, and I can still recognize everybody. I still remember most of the things that happened. Can't remember what I had for lunch an hour ago, but I can remember back in the days where Jeremy played, and Ed Furness went up to catch a ball, and when he came down, he sprained his ankle. And Jeremy, was the next guy. Of course, he's good first baseman. He played there in Enterprise, and then, of course, junior guy. Anyway, I get Jeremy, and it says, you have to play, and you got to hit a home run. And of course, I was just being funny. He hits a home run. Hit his first at bat for Ed Furness. And today, He lives in the neighborhood, and boy, he's put on. He and his wife are so wonderful, and they kept us together.
Mhm.
Jeremy's always been that guy, and I really appreciate it. I told you, I can't remember too much, but boy, I can remember back in the days in '96.
Yeah, we actually we shared quite a few stories on the drive over today, and I think I'm with Coach in that aspect of I may not remember what happened yesterday, but we can remember a 3-1 count against Long Beach State in 1996 of what happened, and and talking about coaches, and I won't say who the player was, but I was telling everybody you had a birthday coming up because last year we watched celebrated the birthday and watched a game. And so one of my former teammates said, "Well, how old is Coach?" And I said, "Well, he's going to be 88 here in a couple of weeks." They said, "Well, hell, I thought he was 82 when we played for him." That was the retrospect you had as a 22-year-old kid. That you didn't really know how old somebody was, or you didn't think about it. So we got a kick about that. So
Jeremy, is there Skip's told so many wonderful stories about the last game and everything, and I wrote a column last week. I started it at like 11 o'clock in the morning. It usually takes me a couple hours to do these things. I was at it 12 hours later because I just couldn't stop writing about what I remember about that series. Give me one of yours. Anything from the '96 series that maybe is a story that didn't go public or something that you can share from your experience.
I think one of the biggest things, and this was kind of a negative, but a lot of people don't talk about it because Merck's home run just overshadowed everything. But a lot of people forget that we went to Florida that year and got swept.
First time.
First time. It was just a really, really bad weekend. Florida's no offense to Florida people, but it's just a bad place to play. They had a really good team.
Yeah.
And we actually talked about this a little bit this past weekend. We we played Florida 6 times that year.
That's right.
We got swept in Gainesville. We catch them in the SEC tournament, and the same guy that beat us there, Sergio Rodriguez, throwing 78 to 82 miles an hour, beats us in the SEC tournament. We get put out by a really average Kentucky team.
Oh, boy.
And then we beat Florida twice in Omaha. That's
something.
That's really something.
The game.
Yep.
And the first game was 9-4. Was the only game that kind of separated a little bit. Bowles hit a homer.
Mm-hmm.
Turner hit a homer in that one, and then the second game was 2-1, and Yarnell pitched and pitched great, but there was I see if you guys remember this play. This would have been about the 7th inning. It's a tie ball game. I'm pretty sure it was a tie ball game. You got the bases loaded, and Bowles hits one to the wall.
Yes,
and only 1 run scores.
Yes.
And it ends up being 2-1, ends up being the final. But the ball goes to the wall, and you're thinking 2 runs. Maybe if it bounces right, 3 run, 1 run, and that ended up being a difference in the ball game. You remember that play?
Good for you, Charles. Yes, like I can't remember what I had for lunch just a couple hours ago, but I remember that. Matter of fact, we talked about it at your place.
Yep.
Bowles hit the ball so hard that it hit the fence and just fell to the ground. I mean, it didn't bounce anywhere. We couldn't get – the guy went back to tag up, and we couldn't get but 1 run. And it just shouldn't be that way. But the game is unusual. It's a great game, but it can be very cruel from time to time.
And the other about Florida, you did get swept in that series, but the Friday night game, 16 innings. And I remember Eddie Yarnell, of course, was throwing in that game as well and pitched really well. But it just kept going and going and going and going. And finally, Florida got you out of there. But that one could have went either way. The Thursday game in Omaha could have went either way. It was so close. And the 3 teams, Florida, LSU, and Alabama, all finished with the same regular season record.
That's something.
And Alabama was the number 1 seed that year, but didn't make it to the finals. I remember so much about this play. I can't remember to take out the trash on Tuesdays, but that series will stay with me forever. The first game against Wichita State, up 9-1, and then got to hang on.
And they hang on.
Kevin Shipp was one of your favorites, Skip. I know.
Yes,
and
he was.
He was supposed to start the second game, and turns out you needed him in the first game.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that well. And I thought Gene Stevenson, of course, and his brother, played first base and was great. And I remember telling the guys, if Stevenson gets on base, he's a tough guy. He had 96 steals. That I can remember. It's amazing. And you can't throw him out. And I said, listen, let him run. He can't score without a hit. Don't worry about it. And, of course, you couldn't throw him out. And we didn't bother. And, of course, the inning ended, with him at second base.
Phantom pickoff play.
I never asked you this. Does Gene Stevenson hate you? Because between the Grand Illusion, beating him twice for the national championship, and then beating him again in '96, does Stevenson? I'm guessing you didn't get a Christmas card very many years from him, right?
You're right, of course. You're right. But one thing that is I speak to Gene probably as much as any coach. When I go to Omaha to see LSU, of course, he sits with me. His wife runs the Hauser Award, so she's always in Omaha. And for some reason, Gene and I have been good friends, and the outcome of a ball game wasn't as strong for Gene, as it was to be a good man, a wonderful guy.
That was those are some great games that the teams played. And of course, Gene Stevenson also won a national championship. Long time coach at Wichita State. That '96 series will forever. Jeremy, where were you standing? What was your vantage point for the home run?
Everybody knows.
Skip's answered this, but what was your vantage point for the home run?
I was looking directly, at Warren. Probably about one person down from Cano. I was in the front third, I guess, of the dugout, one knee up on the top step, hat on backwards. And, the other thing that, again, we talked about was the change of emotion from your team captain and the hottest player on the team striking out on a pitch that nobody hits,
right.
That Morrison dropped off the table. Going from that, and then 20 seconds later, lives changing. That was pretty. Dramatic is, I guess, a little bit of the understatement, but just the change of emotion that happened there. But I've heard guys say this, and Coach, you and Cano can probably attest to it. As down as it was and as bad as it felt when Tim missed the ball, there still wasn't just a devastation feeling in the dugout. That was probably the most amazing thing, is you look down and there was so much positivity given that moment.
Well, that's good.
That was probably the most amazing thing, is Coach didn't lose his mind. Well, I remember Cano telling everybody, would just pick me up. Yes. And that's what Warren,
that's what Tim said to Warren.
Yeah.
Warren, Tim struck out.
Mm-hmm.
Morrison's real good. It's not and he throws that unbelievable hook and strikes out, and he turns and he says to Warren Morris on the way back to the dugout, pick me up. I'll never forget that. That's not making it up. And, of course, Morris hit that. It was a tremendous curveball that the guy threw. But being left-handed, he just dropped his bat right on the ball. And when he hit it, sitting right in the dugout, I said, well, all right, that's a double. He got, and then boom, it just took off. And, it was a great thing. People today, let's see, I even heard today, at lunch, I heard, hey, you know where I was when Warren Morris hit that homer?
Yeah.
I had heard that at lunch today. And I've had so many people, tell me that. So it's like Billy Cannon said, God rest his soul. Billy Cannon said, forget my run against Ole Miss. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened at LSU. That was nice of him. And it may not be the greatest. There was other things that happened at LSU. But there's something that everybody we talk to says to me, I was such a place, when Morris hit the homer.
We got a lot of that 2 weeks ago, didn't we?
Yes,
we got a lot
sure
of that.
did. Yeah.
And
we did.
I want to ask this question too, because besides the home run, which is the obvious in the national championship thing, another great tradition was born that year. And Dan told part of this story last week, and that's the gold jerseys.
That's it.
If we go back to the regional and those gold jerseys, Dan told us a story about how the jerseys came from Sports Bell and how they were going to give them in lieu of the jerseys the next year, and LSU never had a gold jersey in anything but basketball. But what we didn't tell on the air was the story about how you guys found out about it, which was Skip brought it into the locker room behind his back and surprised you guys after BP. And so the reaction to the gold jerseys, Jeremy, what do you remember about that?
Again, it was night and day, because when Coach pulled it out, and Cano was sneaky with that, but when Coach, the gold jerseys, when Cano got it to Coach and he came in the dugout, came in the locker room after batting practice, and he had the gold jersey. I think you may have had it on.
I think I did, and I just
pulled his pullover, and there it was. So of course everybody went nuts. We'd never seen a gold jersey. As we know, they all look fantastic. Yeah. But then when we put them on, it wasn't.
Something happened.
It's itchy. It's too big. I heard everything in the dugout. I wish we were wearing white tonight. I don't like the way it feels.
That's so true.
It was all kind of stuff going on. And then we had the seamstresses, they had to get together that night because the Cooley sleeves had to be taken up a little bit, or Lanier's cut, or whatever it was. But, and we wore those every single game that postseason, except for one. Game.
I know which one. Can I guess?
Which one? Yes.
UNLV?
Austin P.
No. Austin.
No, UNLV. That's right.
No, it was
UNLV. That's right. In the second game. Yep.
And almost lost.
We did. That was when Furness turned his ankle.
Right.
Yep. We wore purple jerseys that game.
I always swear that one of the unsung heroes of that whole postseason run was Joey Painich, because Ship got knocked out early. And you guys were down 4 runs, and Painich came in. You were talking about hold the rope. Was there for I want to say 5 innings worth you guys clawed back. Ended up winning it 7-6. It was a close ball. If you're in the losers bracket, it's hard to come out. In those old 16 regionals, you might have slugged your way out of it, but it would have been hard, man. If that doesn't happen, if Joey Painich doesn't do what he did. The rest of the story becomes so much more improbable to happen.
Yeah.
It's like you said earlier, baseball can be very cruel, and it can be very, very wonderful at different times. It doesn't matter how big you are or how tall you are. Baseball matters today, right this pitch. And he hit the low inside curveball, a good one, right? From Robbie Morrison, a big league prospect. And boy, I remember saying to myself on the bench, okay, that's a double. We'll get some, and the boy, it just kept carrying right out. And that's another wonderful story at LSU for me. And of course for Jeremy, because we weren't supposed to win, that one. And to be at 96 was special. a great bunch of guys, and played real hard. And a lot of people like Joey Painage stepped up
Yeah.
when you needed it.
That's a good point, Charlie. No, there was so much of that happened during the postseason, during the year of, we had to have, Casey Kuntz and Trey McClure
About that.
come in and play, when, arguably your best player goes down
Right.
and they,
Well,
just so much of that.
there were, I've been fortunate as a coach. I don't remember a lot of injuries, and I'm sure we had some. But boy, I remember Trey McClure at UNO fouled the ball off his knee.
Yep.
The next game.
Huh?
It was the next game.
Was
And-
Warren went out.
It was the next game. And then now he can't play. So I'm going to play. Who am I going to? Trey McClure got hurt. And he was a great player, of course. And who went in before Casey?
it was McClure it was McClure. Then he fouled it off, and then he went with Kuntz.
Well,
Yeah.
Kuntz dropped the pop up
Mm-hmm.
the first play that was in there, because he was new to the game.
Yeah.
And of course, he played well, after that. But baseball, like I said earlier, it can be cruel and it can be wonderful, like Warren Moore sitting on. Oh, by the way, nobody's ever done before or after in the ninth inning to win the ball game. Nobody's ever done that in Omaha. And it hasn't been done many places, even in the big leagues. Went once when Mazeroski, hit a homer. It's a great game. Doesn't always work for you, but it's a wonderful game. You don't have to be 6'9". You don't have to be a big and muscular like football. It's anybody can play, and take special guys that play well, like Jeremy, guys that play well at tournament time, where they step up and hold the rope. And, I motivated some, but boy, the kids were great at picking up stuff.
I got one more for you guys. I need to thank our friends at Marucci Sports. The campus tour is available all summer long for your youth league teams. Go to maruccisports.com/campus tour. Get over and see the heart of the game, where the best bats in the country are made, right here in Baton Rouge at Marucci Sports. You go to maruccisports.com/campus tour. Buy everything LSU for all your LSU gear, including all your Lane Kiffin stuff, your Lane Train shirts and hats, patches, decals, national championship gear from the 25 team, and plenty more at everythinglsu.com. And Skip, I know one of your favorites, dependable storage with offices throughout South Louisiana, locations throughout South Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Houma, Jefferson, New Orleans, Prairieville, Slidell, Youngsville. You got a student that needs to store their stuff for the summer, or if you've got personal items that you need stored, it is climate controlled. And of course, they've got great prices. You can use their moving truck to move your things in at Dependable Storage, dependablestorage.com. Like Skip Bertman always says, dependable storage, they want your stuff. Guys, let's wrap it up with this. Again, this season hasn't been what anybody wanted, but Skip, you had only 1 year after your first year that you guys didn't make the tournament in 1988. So when you're faced with this unfamiliar position, and this is unfamiliar for Jay because he makes the tournament every year, the way you've done things, your procedures, your scouting, your practices, all those things that have always been so successful, maybe didn't work this year. So how do you approach this off season? Because most of that stuff works. It just didn't work this year. What do you change? What do you keep the same? How do you approach it?
I'm remembering back in 88 and losing some games that normally in baseball you don't lose. I can remember a line drive, hit over the head, shortstop. I can remember some bloopers that got us beat. You handle it if you want to. You handle it maturely, and remember that baseball is that game. That's what makes it so great. Anybody can win on any day. You don't have to be 6'9". You don't have to bench press 350 pounds. You just have to have played when you were 8, 9, 10, and 11 and learned how to swing it. And very tough to teach hitting. And we were lucky. We had guys that could hit and hit with pop. We had guys that hit in clutch situations. But you're right. When you mentioned Joey Panish, we have pitchers that stepped up like Yarnell and were very, very good in the tournament, which, of course, doesn't always happen. And, yeah, we were good, a lot of fortune, a lot of good fortune. With Jeremy in 96, for example, we had, besides Warren's homer, a lot of good things happen. The most important thing is the kids matter. Naturally, they want to win. But if they don't, it certainly wasn't their fault. You know, it's a baseball game, and anybody can win. And if you're outsized, if your pitcher doesn't throw well, but the other guy throws well, and you lose the game, it has nothing to do with the character of the players. They're super. And I was lucky to have had players like Jeremy and others, and of course, Ed Furness and others that were superstars, you know, and they didn't go to the big leagues, but in college ball, they were superstars.
Coach, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for spending some time. Jeremy, it's great to see you. And,
Charlie, great to see you. Thank you for having me. And I'll echo what Coach said, and whatever adjustments that Coach Johnson and his staff make here at the end of the season, and even in the, you know, in the off season, I can't think of anybody better to have leading our program than Jay, and whatever
coach.
Adjustments he makes. There's nobody that's going to do it, work any harder, do any better than Jay. So we're lucky to have him, and we're all pulling for him.
Tigers will be back, that's for sure. And we'll be back for the next podcast we will do following the SEC tournament. For Dan Canevari, for Skip Bertman, for Jeremy Moore, I'm Charles Hanagriff. This has been the Hannycast for Monday, May the 11th. All right, guys, that was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Charlie.
I didn't have to talk about any of those 3 games this weekend very much. So that was the best part. Guys, safe travels back, and I'll see you when you get back to Baton Rouge.
Thanks, Charlie. Enjoyed it.
All right.
My